You're standing there at a funeral or watching the absolute worst news of your life unfold, or maybe sitting alone after a breakup that honestly should have broken you. And yet, nothing comes out. No tears, just this incredibly tight chest. In that exact moment, there's often this strange, quiet panic that sets in. You start asking yourself, is something wrong with me? Because you watch other people cry at, well, everything. Movies, songs, random arguments, and you feel that pressure building right behind your eyes. You feel the deep ache in your throat. You literally feel everything, except the actual tears. But here is what almost nobody tells you, and I really want you to let this sink in. This has almost nothing to do with how much you feel. Seriously. Not crying absolutely does not mean you're somehow lacking deep, profound emotions. What it's actually about is your nervous system. Somewhere along the way, probably a really long time ago, your body made a definitive decision that crying simply wasn't safe. Maybe you used to cry easily as a kid, and then it just stopped. Or maybe you've never been able to cry, not even once, and you've spent your life quietly wondering if that means something's missing inside you. Actually, there's a clinical term for exactly what you're experiencing. It's called tearlessness. It's officially defined as experiencing the physical and emotional buildup of sadness, but without the ability to physically produce tears. So let's dive into this explainer, because the research on folks who experience this, while a bit small, definitely exists, and it proves something incredibly important. You're not broken, and you are absolutely not alone. The biological mechanism. So to truly understand this whole thing, we've got to look at the biology. Crying is actually a highly complex, coordinated event happening inside your body. It's not just some simple overflow valve for sadness. See, your nervous system operates in two completely different states. Emotional tears, they only happen when your parasympathetic nervous system, that's the part of you responsible for feelings of calm and safety, is active enough to actually let that response through. On the flip side, we have the autonomic high alert state. Fight, flight, or freeze. If your body is locked in this highly protective, high alert state, even if it was triggered by stress from years ago, that state can and will physically block the crying reflex before it even gets a chance to start. Put simply, you are not failing to cry. Your nervous system is actively preventing it. Why? Because some part of you decided, at some point in your past, that shutting down the tears was the much safer option for your survival. This is a protective biological response. 4 causes of tearlessness. Researchers who study crying have actually identified 4 specific, well-documented paths that lead directly to this biological block. Let's run through them. The very first cause is trauma. When people live through a significant psychological shock, they sometimes lose the capacity to cry entirely afterward. And this happens even in situations that would normally bring anyone to tears. But again, this is a protective shutdown initiated by your own body. It's a shield, not a personality trait. The second path is early conditioning. Think about the kind of messages a lot of children hear growing up, like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, right? If you learned early on that tears just got you mocked, punished, or completely ignored, your brain adapted. It suppressed the crying response so consistently over time that it just became automatic. You aren't consciously choosing this anymore. It's a learned reflex your body just executes on its own. Because number 3 is avoidant attachment. And this really brilliantly illustrates how our relationships end up shaping our biology. Studies on tearless adults have found a super strong link to this specific attachment style. It's basically a pattern where staying completely emotionally self-contained feels way, way safer than relying on or depending on anyone else. And that absolutely applies to moments of deep grief or sadness. To your nervous system, vulnerability feels way too dangerous, so the tears are stopped. And the fourth cause is one that's honestly rarely mentioned, but it's absolutely vital to acknowledge: medication. Certain antidepressants are actually known to cause emotional blunting as a side effect, which means they can blunt the physical crying response right alongside blunting your other emotions. Finding safety, not effort. Now, knowing the causes is a great first step, but listen, trying to force the tears out through pure willpower, that almost always backfires. It just pushes your nervous system even further into that high alert state. What the research actually points to is focusing on finding safety, not applying more effort. Crying returns naturally when your nervous system finally decides a moment is safe enough to lower its guard. Now, this isn't a quick fix overnight. It usually means slowly rebuilding a felt sense of safety within your body. Very often, This happens by working with a therapist who's trained in trauma or attachment work, rather than just endlessly trying to chase the tears themselves. Now, if you're at all worried about the long-term impact of this on your life, there is this incredibly reassuring finding from a large study on the topic. Researchers found that while people who couldn't cry did report feeling a bit less connected to others, their overall well-being was no lower than people who cried easily. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this: not crying does not mean you are suffering more. It simply means that one particular emotional pathway, just for right now, is temporarily closed for your own protection. So if you've ever felt that incredibly heavy ache behind your eyes with absolutely nothing coming out, please remember this. You are not cold, and you are not broken. Your body just learned at some point in your unique story that letting those tears fall just wasn't safe yet. If this explainer gave you the words for something you felt but just couldn't quite describe, you might really want to understand the wider pattern that this connects to. We actually have another explainer that dives super deep into why some people stop feeling much of anything at all. I highly recommend watching our explainer on emotional numbness to explore that a bit further.